The drama begins with a police officer arriving at a high school, where a student named Yi Hyun is sitting on the rooftop, clearly upset. Strangely, neither the teachers nor the students seem surprised, almost like they knew this would happen. While the police try to calm Yi Hyun down, his friend, Sae Bom, arrives. She sits next to him on the roof, listening as he vents about his frustrations, how he can't play baseball anymore because of his foot injury. Sae Bom, unsure about her own future, encourages him to take life one day at a time. Then, in a surprising move, she pushes him off the roof. Thankfully, there's a large safety sheet waiting below, but the officer on the roof doesn't know this, making the moment both shocking and funny. Once on the ground, Yi Hyun, clearly touched by Sae Bom's bold move, asks her out on a date. We then jump forward 12 years. Sae Bom is now a police officer. In a tense operation, one officer seems badly injured, but it turns out this is just a training exercise for a new recruit, Jung Tae. Sadly, he fails the test, and Sae Bom, now his superior, takes points off for his hesitation during the drill. Meanwhile, at a hotel, loud banging from a second-floor room catches the attention of the receptionist. When he knocks on the door swings open and he's suddenly pulled inside. Yi Hyun, who is now a police officer too, arrives to investigate. The scene is grim, with the receptionist's throat slashed by a dull knife. There are no witnesses, except for a man named Sung Woo-jae, who was hiding under the bed. He claims not to remember anything, but with blood all over him, including his teeth, it's hard to believe he's innocent. It looks like he bit the victim. Yi Hyun soon discovers that Jung Tae, the same recruit from earlier, has been dealing what he calls 100% legal drugs. Yi Hyun, still in touch with Sae Bom, shares this information with her. When Sae Bom goes to investigate Jung Tae, she's shocked to find him turned into a zombie, attacking another officer. She makes the tough decision to shoot him, but it barely slows him down. In the struggle, Sae Bom gets scratched. Tae Seok steps in, and it's clear he means business. As the lieutenant colonel of the crisis management team, it's his job to stop the infection at all costs. He demands Sae Bom hand over her gun and cooperate, as they suspect she's infected. She's taken away for testing, and while this is happening, Yi Hyun calls Tae Seok. He updates him about the murder scene he's investigating, asking if it could be connected to the infection. Tae Seok explains the disease. He believes it's a virus that attacks the brain and makes people bite others. These victims die from blood loss. Yi Hyun asks if this could cause visions or hallucinations, but Tae Seok isn't sure. Yi Hyun then returns to the crime scene and finds some pills. However, Jong later confirms that Woo-jae, the suspect, wasn't under the influence. Yi Hyun then goes to see his friend, asking him to investigate the pills. He learns that these clear pills are actually oral medication for treating COVID, but they come with side effects like mood swings and hallucinations. Yi Hyun wonders if there's a connection between these pills and the virus. Meanwhile, Sae Bom is being tested, and multiple samples are taken. She shares her experiences, noting how the infected seem similar to those with rabies, especially their cloudy eyes. Tae Seok decides to keep her overnight for observation until her test results come back. As Sae Bom looks around her room, she notices something strange. There are other rooms like hers, each housing infected people in what seem to be university dorms. Thankfully, Sae Bom's test results come back negative. Tae Seok keeps watching her and decides to run more tests the next morning. The next morning, Sae Bom meets Jung Tae privately, hoping to find out if the drugs are linked to the disease, but Jung Tae only keeps repeating, "I'm so thirsty." Suddenly, Jung Tae attacks Sae Bom, trying to bite her. The guards rush in, restrain him, and electrocute him, but his heart monitor doesn't move. Sae Bom realizes she's being watched and confronts Tae Seok. He admits that the virus is tied to an extreme thirst, and while it's not as contagious as other diseases, it's dangerous enough to cause panic if the public finds out. The facility is kept cold to slow the spread of the virus. Since Sae Bom isn't infected, Tae Seok gives her a temporary pass but tells her she must return every 2 weeks for blood tests. In exchange, Sae Bom strikes a deal with him for a unit in a public apartment building. Yi Hyun arrives to pick up Sae Bom and out of nowhere, she asks him if they should get married. This shocks him. Outside, Sae Bom explains why she asked him to marry her. She needs more points to qualify for her housing application, and being married will improve her chances. Surprisingly, Yi Hyun is fine with it, especially after Sae Bom tells him, "I'm a nice person, and there aren't many of us left." Meanwhile, a crowd has gathered at a homeless shelter, blocked off by soldiers. The people are anxious, but Tae Seok is even more disturbed when he arrives and sees the aftermath of a brutal attack. He learns that the same pill was given to someone, which caused them to become infected and kill others. The bigger problem is that the country is starting to hear rumors about the deaths, and Tae Seok's team can only do so much to keep it under control. Meanwhile, Sae Bom is back at work, bright and early. Sung Young is there too, and she mentions that she's got new accommodation. However, Sung Young hasn't told anyone about being scratched by Jung Tae during the last training session. His comments about people not leaving the university dorm make more sense now. Sae Bom arrives at the apartment building. On her way up in the elevator, she meets a man who advises her to wear a mask indoors. Sae Bom apologizes but doesn't seem too concerned. In this building, floors above the 6th are off-limits to those living below, highlighting a clear divide between the rich and the poor. But Sae Bom doesn't care about that. She kicks a door open and hands out rice cakes to everyone. We then meet lawyer Hae-sung and his wife Shin-so, Min-ji, and her husband Ju Hyung, a shady man who's clearly cheating on his wife. Later that night, strange banging sounds come from Ju Hyung's apartment, waking Sae Bom and Yi Hyun up. The next morning, Yi Hyun is called in by Tae Seok, who needs his help with the infection case. Tae Seok gives him Jung Tae's unlocked phone and a tempting financial reward, asking Yi Hyun to dig deeper into Jung Tae's past and connections to the drug. Tae Seok, knowing how sharp Yi Hyun is, compliments him by calling him the sleuth, trying to win him over. With Yi Hyun out investigating, Sae Bom is left alone and hears banging noises again. When she checks upstairs, she finds Ju Hyung, who claims he's just been moving furniture. Sae Bom isn't convinced but doesn't push for answers. Instead, she decides to exercise, until she gets a call from Sung Young. Sung Young is in bad shape. He tells Sae Bom that his wound isn't healing and begs for help. Worried, Sae Bom drives him to the treatment center, but something feels off. It turns out Sung Young is hiding the real infection, which is on his chest, and he cut his wrist as a distraction to fool the doctors. Tae Seok's assistant, Jisoo, shares alarming news about the infection. So far, there's no cure, and everyone who gets infected has turned into a crazed, dangerous version of themselves, except for Sae Bom. This makes her special, and there's a strong chance she could be the key to a cure. Meanwhile, Sung Young's true intentions come to light. He didn't come to the facility just for treatment, he's actually trying to get an exclusive story for the press, even though he signed a secrecy agreement. Jisoo mentions that the most critical patients have been moved to a refrigerated truck out back to make space for more infected. Unfortunately, that's exactly where Sung Young is heading. Sung Young sneaks into the truck and finds it packed with beds, each holding infected patients hooked up to IVs, chained from the roof to the floor. But soon, the doors lock behind him. He calls his press contact, promising a major story in exchange for money. After hanging up, he moves further into the truck, only to realize too late that the infected patients are waking up and slowly approaching him. Meanwhile, Yi Hyun and Tae Seok track down a contact who claims to have a stash of pills. However, when they arrive at the warehouse, they find not pills, but an infected man in the trunk of the car. The man goes wild and attacks Yi Hyun, but Tae Seok manages to shoot him. Afterward, they learn that the infected had taken large amounts of Next, the same drug that's been causing the outbreak. Back at the treatment center, Sae Bom gets a frantic call from Sung Young. He tells her, they're not human. The call ends, and when Sae Bom and the others open the truck doors, they're confronted by a group of infected. Sae Bom is horrified as she watches the soldiers struggle to close the doors. It's clear that Sung Young is infected too. A loud alarm goes off and Yi Hyun finally reaches Sae Bom. Everyone is outside dealing with the zombie problem on the truck. Sae Bom and Yi Hyun, both very lucky, manage to find Sung Young in the swarm of zombies and get him to safety. They use a flash grenade, which works perfectly, knocking out everyone on the truck and keeping the situation under control for now. It was a close call, and Sae Bom knows it. She confronts Tae Seok, asking him how long he plans to keep everything a secret. Later, Yi Hyun and Sae Bom go back home and have a video call with Sae Bom's mom. But they get distracted by loud noises from upstairs. Yi Hyun goes up to check and finds Ju Hyung and Song Hee, who both seem upset and act very suspiciously. Even though Lee Hyun tries to get them to explain, they don't give him any answers. Their excuse about taking time off from the dermatology clinic seems believable for now. Sae Bom, fed up with the noise later, decides to check on them herself. She sees blood on Ju Hyung's sleeve and forces her way into the apartment. Inside, she finds bloody handprints in the bathroom, and Ju Hyung quickly locks her in. That's when Sae Bom comes face to face with Min Ji, who has clearly turned into a zombie. Min Ji breaks out and chases Ju Hyung down the hallway. Luckily, Sae Bom is able to step in and protect So Yoon, a little girl who gets caught in the chaos. Sae Bom uses a pillow to hold off Min Ji just long enough for Lee Hyun to jump in and stop her. With the woman under control, the rest of the people in the apartment building head out to buy disinfectants and other supplies to protect themselves from catching what Min Ji has. Soon after, Tae Seok goes on the news to confirm that this mad person disease is real. Lee Hyun, knowing that Tae Seok is holding Min Ji at a secret facility, goes to check on her. She's tied to a bed and mentally falling apart. By the end of the night, she passes away. Lee Hyun is determined to find out who's behind all this, so he goes back to Ju Hyung's place. It turns out that Min Ji's skull was bashed in, and Ju Hyung's golf clubs were originally covered in blood. It seems like Ju Hyung killed his wife. The disease may just be a cover-up, especially since Min Ji owned the clinic. Killing her could benefit Ju Hyung's career. Song Hee backs up this story, and her testimony leads to Ju Hyung's arrest. But then, more bad news comes. Tae Seok talks to Sae Bom and reveals that the pill dealer sold the pills not only to Min Ji but to many other people in the apartment complex. The only choice left is to quarantine the entire building, sealing it off from the outside world. In the parking lot, Dong Hyun tries to leave but discovers he isn't alone. Many others want to get out too. Unfortunately, the garage is locked, so no one can leave. Meanwhile, Ju Hyung, who is handcuffed, calls Haesung for legal help. Just then, Lee Hyun catches up to him and interrupts the call. Ju Hyung argues about his rights and tries to find a way out, but they quickly realize they're all stuck together for a while. Later, there's a meeting scheduled for all residents of Building 101 in the gym at 5 p.m. So Yoon's mother is outside and isn't allowed to go inside. She calls Sae Bom, who is taking care of her daughter, to explain that So Yoon has a heart condition. If she gets even a small cut, she needs to go to the hospital right away, making things quite tense. When the meeting starts, the residents find out they will be in lockdown for a week. Lee Hyun tries to calm everyone down, but it's clear that there's no one from the management inside the building, except for one cleaner outside the door. The meeting falls apart when Oh Yun and her husband turn it into a chance to promote their church and show off their leadership skills. The other residents see through this shameless attempt and aren't impressed. One person who stands out is Andrew, a cleaner. His real name is Jean. He uses a superhero name because he wants to be like a hero he saw on a show. Another person acting suspiciously is Sung Bom, who is drinking a lot of water. He claims he's just taking supplements, but Lee Hyun worries he might be hiding something. Lee Hyun decides to keep a close watch on him. While things seem calm in the apartment complex, Tae Seok and the rest of South Korea are facing chaos. News about the madness disease has everyone on high alert, and the country is about to shut down. To make things worse, Tae Seok's boss, the chairman, is infected too, as he's extremely thirsty. This is troubling because the chairman was the one who pushed Next into the market, leading to all this madness. The next day, the residents enjoy a peaceful meal on the rooftop. This calm moment is short-lived, as Sung Bom, the suspected infected person, manages to escape. Lee Hyun and Sae Bom chase after him, but things quickly turn horrific when blood spills, and a panicked, blood-covered resident is attacked by the infected. This marks the start of a terrifying situation. As the chaos unfolds outside, Andrew watches from the rooftop. Inside Building 101, Tae Seok calls Sae Bom, warning her that it's all over for the other buildings and that their only hope is to stay inside. But with one of the infected security guards banging at the door, it doesn't look easy. Sae Bom goes to check on So Yoon, bringing a baseball bat with her to keep them safe. There's no signal for their phones or TVs, so they're completely cut off from the outside world. It also looks like Sung Shil, the old lady from room 302, might be infected. She's scratching her back, and when she pulls her hand away, there's blood. More residents gather downstairs, trying to figure out how the infection spread so quickly, but things start to get tense. Sae Bom shows up and tells anyone who wants to leave that they can go, but no one is willing to take the risk. With limited food and Ms. O on their side for now, they start discussing their next steps and realize they might be stuck there for a while. A strange new development with the infection is that sometimes the infected go back to their normal, calm state. The infection isn't just inside the apartment complex. Tae Seok goes to a nightclub where he hears loud banging behind a door. Tae Seok tells his team to keep everything secret. While the situation at the nightclub is kept quiet, things in the apartment complex are not. Tensions rise when Jung Yi Hyun challenges the idea of the infection, offering $300 to anyone brave enough to go outside for supplies. Later, he ups the offer to $1,000. Meanwhile, an earlier incident where Song-hee flirted with Hae-sung keeps room 601 on his mind. After a chaotic day, Lee-hyun and Sae Bom check on So-yoon again. She asks what's going on with the infected, but Sae Bom reassures her that things will get better soon. She tells So-yoon it will all be over in a week and a vaccine is on the way, though she's clearly worried when her messages to her mom still aren't going through. Meanwhile, there's another briefing about the mad person virus, now called the Lita virus. The infection spreads when the virus enters the bloodstream but doesn't take effect until it reaches the brain. People get infected by being bitten, scratched, or taking a drug called Next, which is how Patient Zero was created and the outbreak began. Unfortunately, there seems to be no cure for the disease. They're experimenting with the live virus to find a solution, but it could take a month, 3 weeks longer than they can afford. Tae Seok confirms that a barrier in the brain prevents treatment from working. Based on Tae Seok's model, they'll be overrun by zombies in a week. What he doesn't tell the group is that it may already be a lost cause. Tae Seok then considers whether to extend the lockdown area or capture the infected. He even thinks about killing everyone to stop the spread. Meanwhile, Jung Yi Hyun continues his shady operation, paying people to venture outside. Lee Hyun and Sae Bom are among those who go out, along with Dong Hyun, who is there to capture everything on his phone. Near the front door, they find the security guard and 3 other infected residents. They're not in their crazed state, but they're trying to escape. There's been no food delivered from outside, and after an awkward encounter near the gates, the group heads to the food mart to get supplies. Unfortunately, Dong Hyun lingers too long, and the infected corner him. Andrew, hiding in the supply room, stays completely silent. Lee Hyun and Sae Bom also find a store worker who doesn't seem infected. Luckily, they all manage to escape, locking the gate behind them to keep the infected out. Ms. O has an uneasy encounter with one of the infected in the parking lot. The man seems normal at first, and she almost opens the door to let him in. But then she remembers the infected's strange thirst and drops water on the ground, which triggers the man to go crazy. When the group returns to the apartment complex, Jung Yi Hyun refuses to let them in. He plays the cries of the infected, luring them toward the building. Chaos breaks out as Jung Yi Hyun sneaks away, but eventually, the doors are opened, and the group gets inside. Lee Hyun is furious and confronts Jung Yi Hyun. In a fit of rage, he rubs blood on Jung Yi Hyun's face, pushing him into a frenzy. Sae Bom arrives just in time to calm Lee Hyun down, and she hugs him to comfort him. Meanwhile, Tae Seok learns that one of the infected has escaped the apartment complex. He makes a big decision, to let the infected person go in a controlled environment. This way, he can ensure no one gets hurt while also swaying public opinion to fear and hate the infected. In a flashback, we see why this outbreak is so personal to Tae Seok. The chairman became infected after taking the drug Next, and also infected Tae Seok's wife. This gives Tae Seok a deep reason to take the outbreak seriously. Back in the apartment complex, Sae Bom and Lee Hyun wonder if anyone could break into the building. They head up to the roof and find Andrew there, keeping watch. While they're up there, Sae Bom and Lee Hyun share a romantic moment. Meanwhile, Ms. O takes advantage of the crisis to push her agenda of becoming the apartment representative. Stressed, and even losing her hair, she visits So-yoon and realizes that Sae Bom and Lee Hyun's marriage isn't built on love. But there's still hope for them to grow closer. Jung Yi Hyun, still terrified after his encounter with Lee Hyun, heads to the gym. He realizes that the infection might have started there and questions Sung Bom, who's still being held captive. When Lee Hyun shows up, he sees that Sung Bom is acting crazy and trying to grab Jung Yi Hyun. Sung Bom is definitely infected. Down in the basement, Hae-sung almost lets an infected man in, who pretends to need legal help. Just before he opens the door, Sae Bom rushes down and shuts it, keeping the infected out. At the gym, Sung Bom briefly returns to his normal state. It's heartbreaking because he only took the next pills twice, making his situation tragic. The residents are planning to vote on whether to kick him out the next morning, but for now, things stay calm. Ju Hyung then grabs the pills from Sung Bom's car. With 4 days left of quarantine, the group gathers to vote on kicking Sung Bom out. Sae Bom argues against it, reminding them of COVID and how the infected aren't at fault. It's not their choice to be infected. The vote ends in a tie, 9-9, until Se-hun, the guy Sae Bom met in the elevator, shows up and votes to keep Sung Bom inside. They agree to watch over him in shifts. Meanwhile, Dong-hyun realizes he dropped his phone outside. The store worker agrees to pick it up for him, but while doing so, she gets cornered by an infected. The security guard and the infected resident break in, and Soo-min is bitten and infected, while Na-hyun barely makes it inside the gym. Lee-hyun, now in a panic, starts searching for Sae Bom, who could be in serious danger.